Hello, I am Rabbi Stacey Blank, Director of Education and Leadership Development for the World Union for Progressive Judaism. We met in May 2023 in Jerusalem for the International Connections Conference, where we presented the values propositions of the World Union for Progressive Judaism. We held discussions in 20 roundtables facilitated by leaders from around the world. Today, I will be presenting the results of those discussions for our first value and the reformulated value proposition based on those discussions. As always, we welcome your input and thoughts going forward. Our first value is the WPJ as a central hub of a worldwide network. What did people like about this value proposition? They felt that, first and foremost, it is important to make known to the world that there are 2 million Reform and Progressive Jews, and at the same time, to recognize the diversity of those regions. Another important point was the feeling that the WPJ is not an umbrella over everybody else, but rather something that is part of a more horizontal structure, perhaps a bridge, perhaps a hub which has spokes in a center, perhaps a network, also perhaps a web, which signifies a worldwide communication, content, and leadership between regions. The WPJ is a facilitator of communication. People very much connected with a vision of collaborative spirit, sharing of ideas, best practices, and resources for all ages and all ranges of involvement in communities and Jewish life. People also like the idea of a hub signifying different types of communication, not just one way or another. The use of technology, online communication, which helps connect people. The sense of being part of a worldwide network, which allows for sharing, and also taking into account that not all relationships can deepen only in a virtual level, the need for in-person meetings. People felt that this value helps them to understand, or helps the world to understand, who we are as the WPJ. It's a very central part of the identity of being an international organization. And finally, to emphasize the idea in an international bond that is horizontal, the change should not come from the top down, but rather as partnership between all of us on an equal level. So what I'm presenting now is the revised text based on the feedback in the roundtable discussions. I call this the Mishnah. The Mishnah is the simple presentation of the text, the action-oriented text telling us this is what we do. The WPJ serves as the connector between communities, impacting the lives of some 2 million progressive Reform Jews worldwide. We endeavor to ensure that the needs of all communities are represented. As the world grows accustomed to virtual spaces, we wish to maximize our impact by facilitating communication, ideas, and resource sharing across time zones, languages, and cultures. Through virtual and in-person interactions, we share best practices and promote international participation in community events. Through in-person and online seminars, we promote cooperation and network formation for mutual support and idea sharing. Through committees, working groups, and personal meetings, professional staff and lay volunteers, we seek to maximize resources for initiatives and partnerships on a global level, global and local level. If that was our Mishnah, I now present the Gemara. The function of the Gemara in our tradition is to give a commentary to show the discussions that took place as we reach our values statement. So to bring some of the discussion to bear on the formation or reformation of our statement, we can see here that first and foremost, the word connector, the WPJ serves as the connector. And this word was brought based on the comments, of which we have a representative of them here, which said instead of bridge, which feels static, maybe the word network or shared space, connecting, tissue, something to signify dynamic environment. Another thought, a bridge is only between 2 points. Maybe we need to be more connecting tissue. And finally, the simple statement, use the word connect. So we hope that connector is a sense of, in the most widest sense of the world, of bringing different groups and people together. Next, we have the word communities. And this also was a decision to broaden our base of people who we're speaking about. So the suggestion was to take out the word 7 regions. And I don't need to specify here. Perhaps it will change in the future. In any case, the basis of our regions are communities, which could be synagogue communities, can be education communities. So that suggestion was to make the word more one word that fits many definitions. And another comment, considering the number of regions to give us some flexibility. If we go to the second paragraph, we've highlighted through virtual and in-person interactions. So here, this was updated based on comments who said, we don't like only the word social media, again, a narrowing word, and suggested this phrase, virtual and in-person interaction. So that allows us to use many different types of interactions and not limit ourselves. And as I said, social media in itself is not so important. It is one of the tools. And we have here the word best practices. And so this word had a little bit of controversy, as perhaps it indicates, oh, I know what I'm doing and you don't, but we still think there's value in sharing the positive things that we all do as mutual support and helping to solve issues, which is mentioned later in the sentence. And here we have also comments, signify intra and interconnection relations, to use the word support. We want the sense of two-way between international and local. Communities need the international leaders and direction. And of course, our work is based on the work of communities around the world. And I'll come back to that in a moment, because some extra general comments. The word maximize. It was suggested to use this word instead of share resources, to use maximize. And I do think that's a more aspirational word and lens to our mission. So going back to our yellow box in the bottom right corner, there were some other ideas that were brought up that I think we'd like to keep in mind going forward when we talk about being a connector, a hub connector, as the role of the WPJ between our global organizations. And one idea was the sense of global services, perhaps the idea that what the WPJ does, it is always functioning in a way that on a global level, and perhaps leaving development of local communities and local regions to the local level. Another idea was stretching the idea to stress volunteer leadership. We all know that the majority of our communities, all of our communities, could not exist without the volunteer leadership alongside the professional leadership. and we want to perhaps emphasize those roles. And finally, people felt that if the WPJ is a hub connector, and we'll see this thread throughout the values, it's very important to educate people about the WPJ. Many said that they don't feel that people know enough what the organization is and what it is here for all of us. And we decided, if we are looking forward and joining tradition with modernity, one of the new innovations in our time is artificial intelligence through ChatGPT. So here we have a query to ChatGPT. Give me 3 different versions of this text in 15 words, as we often tend to make our statements a little long. So let's see if ChatGPT succeeded in encapsulating this value in 15 words. So the first attempt. Connecting progressive Reform Jews globally, the WPJ maximizes impact by facilitating communication, ideas, and resource sharing. 2. The WPJ links communities, empowering 2 million progressive Reform Jews worldwide through virtual and in-person interactions. 3. Serving as a global connector, the WPJ promotes cooperation, maximizes resources, and supports initiatives and partnerships. So we can also discuss if we think that we are able to squeeze this value and its actions into 15 words. We also want to share some of the best practices that were shared at the Connections Roundtables. And here we see a lot of ways that our communities act in connecting, which we can learn from each other. So first of all, we have our Netzer youth movement. They have a lot of exchanges where madrichim will visit snifim. And we have some countries that do have their own local leadership programs for the entire country. We have exchange of rabbis. We will have rabbis from one region serve in long-term or short-term positions in other regions. And the WPJ is a connector for that. We have information sites like the website. And we have communities that serve as hubs, and that they serve as ambassadors and share with larger communities, Jewish and non-Jewish, about Reform Progressive Judaism and about the WPJ and our global network. An example of hub connecting was through the campaign for the Ukraine crisis. This WPJ hub provided a platform. Local communities used it, promoted it, and the hub could direct to resources. We have in Europe, the Baalei Tefillah training program served as a hub, a training platform to help promote what is available in terms of helping communities to have lay leaders who can step in and help to lead tefillot, prayers. And let's see, our Torah exchange program, communities that need a Torah scroll or communities that have a Torah scroll to donate, as we saw in the Connections Conference, that we exchanged 7 Torah scrolls. And our twinning programs through our partner, the WZO, and it connects different synagogues from around the world. There was an online event between Australia and South America, which provided an exchange. And during the COVID pandemic, we had the WPJ Shabbat around the world, broadcasting on Zoom the activities of different communities and advertising through WPJ channels. We have federations of communities that serve as hubs to help each other. And we also have regional Beit Din, rabbinic courts that serve sometimes entire continent and bring different countries together. We also shared our challenges at the Connections Roundtable. And these are points that we can put our minds together and think how to work together to overcome our challenges. So we understood that while virtual meetings are helpful, sometimes they're too much or they don't really help us to form the connections that we need. We also would like for the people from our communities to meet, but sometimes they're not the ones who would come on these virtual sessions or would come to the regional meetings. Sometimes it's only the top leaders. How do we get more people involved in this global network? Some regions have a lot of Reform progressive Jews who do not know about the WPJ or don't feel an active part. How do we make people to feel more part of that? And if you're going to be a hub connector, so you need very good communication or marketing. And we need to improve the ways that we feel connected to each other. And certainly all of this takes resources, and we have to recognize we don't always have the financial resources that we would like to invest in savvy communications. And all of this takes leadership. If we don't have the right kind of leadership or amount of leaders, we may not achieve these goals. And the question is, who is in the center? Who is, in the sense, have their hands on the controls to make sure all of these connections happen? The sense of isolation, how to increase communication, and the place of branding to help the people to understand and explain what is this global network, what is it is to be a part of the WPJ. And we had a lot of great ideas, so we can take note and see what we can work on going forward. So local communities, for example, could bring in a speaker on Shabbat to speak about the WPJ to a local or regional organization, either live or virtually. We could provide workshops that help local communities, regions to understand how to incorporate the WPJ services that are offered. We can initiate a worldwide activity every couple months. We could make a calendar of events. We could make a language department to help provide more translations to reach many more people in the world who do not speak English, to give them access to our resources and our network. Global Rabbi Exchange, sharing funds to work together. Here was talking about Netzer, different snifim could put in a little bit of money and to pool our resources to create activities and exchanges. Creating an app to make information more accessible. Clarifying roles of the WPJ. Who and what does different things at the WPJ. Organizing Limud conferences. These are great events to bring people together. Creating resource hubs, different kinds of hubs. Could be legal resources, educational resources, fundraising resources. Creating meetings in professional groups called what we might call forums, interest groups or professional interest groups. To designate in every region or community a professional staff or volunteer leader that this is their role, to be the connector to the world organization, to think about development of these kinds of tools. Having more WPJ in-person interaction with communities. So more WPJ leadership and staff visiting communities and participating in regional events. Increase the youth participation and make a global calendar to share with everybody. Lots of wonderful ideas. So we hope that you got some interesting food for thought, and you can see the richness of the discussions that we have as a worldwide community, and that you will join us for our monthly discussions on our value propositions.